Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have something very interesting to take a look at. These are two brand new Giganotosaurus figures that I've recently discovered on eBay. I didn't know anything about them because on eBay there wasn't really a name attached to them, a company attached to the figures, so I was pretty clueless as to who made them. All I had were some images, and I thought they both actually looked really cool. So I went ahead and purchased both different color schemes, which you can see here. It's the same sculpt, but two different color schemes. Pretty much what is the norm nowadays as far as most companies. They usually like to give us a few different variants of each figure. Well, we have two different variations of this as far as the paint scheme goes. And honestly, I think they look really, really cool and are surprisingly well made for being a figure from a company that I don't know anything about. Although, when they actually arrived, I did find out who the company is that makes them, and we could see it here on this tag. Right there is the name right here, and I don't know anything about that company. I don't know how to pronounce the name of the company, but that is who makes the figures that you see before you, and I have heard that they actually make a lot of bootleg figures as well, but I don't know that for sure. But I can tell you that these two figures here are really large, pretty darn nice looking Giganotosaurus figures made by them. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get a closer look at both right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of this variation of the Giganotosaurus, you can see overall that the sculpt and detail is actually really nicely done for the most part. As far as like the fine detailing, like skin texture and everything like that goes, it is really beautiful as far as I'm concerned, as far as really nice fine detailing on the figure, and as well the paint job is really, really nice overall. I love that there are so many different tones of color, so many different tones and variations of paint used on the figure, just giving it a really cool appearance as far as the amount of paint application that is included on the figure. And actually both of them are pretty much the same way. They really do have some very nice looking paint jobs. You can see around the eye there we do have a little bit of a darkened area, kind of like a dark brown that kind of borders around the eye, and then the eye itself is painted with a reddish coloration and a very small black pupil in there. I will say the eye paint is a little sloppy, as I would have preferred to see just like the paint inside the eye and not kind of like the entire eye area painted that reddish coloration. I think it could have looked better, but it still doesn't look bad. I do love the different variations of green, how you can see it kind of lightens in certain areas and then has like darker tones up here. The nostrils are actually elaborated with a nice darker coloration right there. You can see some ridges that run up along the top of the dinosaur are painted quite nicely also. Inside the mouth, we can see the skin flap here on the side of the mouth, painted with like a purplish coloration. Does sport some pretty nice texturing to it as well. The teeth look pretty decent, but there is a little sloppiness, but for the most part I think they actually look pretty good overall. One thing I could say I'm not a huge fan of is how bright red the tongue is. I feel like that's just a little bit too unrealistic, unless we're just kind of trying to portray some blood inside the mouth of the dinosaur, but then it wouldn't just be on the tongue. But the tongue itself, as far as I'm concerned, is definitely a bit of an unrealistically bright reddish coloration, so something that this company could work on at some point in the future potentially. Looking over here at the other side of the mouth again, you can see that for the most part the teeth look pretty nice. The skin flap here again on the inside of the mouth also looks quite nice. I don't know if we can get a shot inside the mouth to see what the detailing in there looks like. It is definitely a little bit dark in there, but it looks pretty decent for the most part. I think it looks quite nice. And again, the sculpt is really impressive for a company that I haven't heard too much out of. As we start to move down into the neck, you can see some kind of osteoderms or scutes that run down along the side of the dinosaur. Really nice wrinkling in the skin as the Giganotosaurus has its head turned to the right quite a bit, so that's some really nice attention to detail right there. Some nice brown stripes picking up. Again, we transition to a similar green like we had up here on the snout right there in the neck, and I really actually quite like that greenish coloration on the figure. Nice detailing here in the throat. Lots of really beautiful skin wrinkling going on the figure. Really nice skin folding and everything, and you can see that throughout the entire figure. Like, look at the stomach, just has lots of skin folds going on, and the skin detail, as far as I'm concerned, is just incredibly nicely done. As we come down here, you can sort of pick up on the shoulder blade there, but you can also see that the arm sculpt looks quite nice. Again, some nice paint variation included. As you come down into the fingers have a nice scoot-like appearance down the fingers. Again, a nice dark wash appears to have been applied to that area to bring that detail out quite nicely. The nails are painted with a blackish coloration as well, look really quite nice. overall, the paint for the most part doesn't seem to be really sloppily done, and really actually nicely applied. It looks nice and natural all over the figure. Beautiful skin folding and everything, skin reacting here with the arm pushing into the body right there. Again, lots more skin wrinkles and skin folds throughout the entire figure. Beautiful skin texturing that you can see has kind of been dry brushed over with like a darker coloration to bring that out quite nicely. You can continue to see those nice brown stripes that run down along the dinosaur. It lightens up here on the back right around here, right around the early back area, and that continues to run pretty much the entire length of the dinosaur. We have that lighter coloration up here on the top, and you can also see those kind of scutes and osteoderms run along the back of the dinosaur, almost giving it a bit of a armored-like appearance, as well as those ridges here that run along the back. And again, very nicely done as far as the paint application. There's just so much paint included on this figure. You can see the hip elaborated a bit here. You also have some scoots that run along the hip, more skin wrinkling, skin folding. Just the skin detail in general on this figure is really, really beautiful. Some more osteoderms here and there as we run down the length of the leg. You can see the kneecap a little bit right there. Some skin folding going on here at the bend of the knee. Nice calf muscles that are quite nicely defined right there. As we move down into the foot, you can see the foot has a similar appearance to the way that the hand looked, with like a nice dark wash and a lighter coloration as far as like the scoots and everything that run down the toes. You can see the dew claw is actually sculpted out back there and painted. Coming back up into the tail, lots more skin folding and skin wrinkling going on. Again, those really nice brown stripes look really good on the figure. I love the paint job of this one specifically. It really reminds me a lot of kind of the Musi Giganotosaurus and the paint scheme that one had. It's similar but not exact, but of course very similar in the design and somewhat similar with the actual tones of color used. But as we move out the length of the tail, you can continue to see lots of really beautiful kind of skin detail, skin wrinkles, and just generally some beautiful skin texturing as we move out the length of the tail, and it transitions to like a brownish coloration out here at the tip. And you do have a nice curve, very nice natural looking curve. It's nothing that's like a sharp curve or anything like that to the body at all. And then if we look at the opposing side, again, beautiful detailing here in the neck. You can see lots of skin movement once again throughout the entire neck region of our Giganotosaurus. Some more of those really nice scoots that run along the back of the neck down into the back of the dinosaur. Beautiful skin detailing. Again, the skin is really nicely reacting to the movement of the arm kind of being pushed up into the body. You can see some ridges that run along the back of the arm right there. Really nicely sculpted out hands on this side as well with that nice scoot-like appearance and that dark wash. Very nicely painted nails. You can see this leg is just a little bit further forward in comparison to what we see on the opposing leg there. Beautiful paint job again on this side. Very nicely elaborated hip bone right there with those scoots, some more osteoderms as we move down the leg. And again, I love how nice and natural the paint job looks. It really does look like skin color on the figure and not like paint on a figure. It really does look like the actual coloration of the animal, and you can see that those nice brown stripes continue as we move down that very nice elaborated calf muscle into the foot sculpt. Very nicely sculpted out foot as far as those scoots and everything that run down the toes. And then coming back up into the tail, we continue to move out here with some more really gorgeous looking sculpt and detail the entire way out. The underside as well actually has some decent sculpt, but not quite as nice as what we see on the upper side of the dinosaur, but still, for the most part, pretty darn nice. And I must say that I am extremely impressed with this figure. And one thing that's really interesting to note is the fact that it seems completely solid. It's definitely not hollow. It's really quite heavy and feels really well made, which is also a plus. And then as far as this variation goes, this actually reminds me a lot, as far as the paint scheme goes, to the kind of Papo rainbow dinosaurs. They have the rainbow standing Rex, the rainbow running Rex. They sort of had a similar paint job on the one Acrocanthosaurus. Just like the way it's painted really reminds me kind of those figures. But it looks really good on this figure as well. And you can see that the head sculpt here has some more really nice variation of color to it. Quite a bit going on. And it's also got a really nice dry brushing with kind of like a light gray over top of the figure for the most part in all the areas to really bring that detail out quite nicely, and you can really pick up on that in most areas as far as that light gray dry brushing that they've given the figure. You can also see that again, the inside of the mouth in this one looks pretty much exactly like what we had seen on the previous one. Pretty much nicely painted, but nothing amazing, nothing to write home about, except for this kind of ugly coloration there for the tongue. The nostrils are once again elaborated with a darker coloration. The eyes are painted very similarly to the other one with a nice reddish coloration. Again, kind of sloppy, but not too bad. You have some kind of spots here and there that appear up here on the face and then run down here into the neck with a really nice dark bluish coloration up here on the top of the Giganotosaurus, and the ridges on this one now are like a dark brown. As we move down, we start to kind of get like an orangish brown coloration with some of those blue stripes kind of leading down into the body from the top. You can again pick up on that really nice gray dry brushing all over the figure, and then you have like a darker brown that kind of runs along the lower part of the stomach that then transitions to a gray down here on the bottom of the underside here of the dinosaur. Again, you can see how nicely done the detailing is all over the figure. You can get a better idea of those ridges on the arm. The scoots here on the hand, again, we have kind of like a darker wash there to really bring that detail out quite nicely. And it pretty much stays that same sort of a style as far as the paint application the entire way out of the entire tail and pretty much the entire figure. It has that very similar appearance to the kind of like the orangish coloration, orangish brown, and then that like brownish coloration here that runs out the length, and then transitioning to the gray here on the underside. The feet are painted just like the hands with like a lighter coloration, a nice darker wash, and again it looks really good. Nicely painted nails on both feet, and you can see how nicely done the detailing here is as far as like that grayish coloration that they've dry brushed over it, bringing all the detail out in really beautiful fashion. I actually quite love this variation of the Giganotosaurus. You can get an idea of what it looks like over here as well. Beautifully painted, if I must say so. I really do quite like the paint job on this. And again, it doesn't look like it's like any type of a bootleg type of a paint job. Like they've really gone the extra mile as far as the paint application of both of these figures. I feel like potentially better than most big name companies do with their dinosaur figures. So that is definitely a plus on the part of this Giganotosaurus, is how nicely painted both versions are. Really beautifully done, and I'm not too sure which one I like the most, but I think it might be the other one, but this one is really, really nicely done as well. As far as a size goes, if we go from the length of the tail, which is really out here, to the tip of the snout, you are looking at about 18 inches in length, or around 46 centimeters, which you may not have been able to pick that up on the camera, but that's exactly what it is. And for a height, probably the highest point would be the tip of the snout, a little bit there, under 7 inches, almost actually 7 inches on the dot, or about 17 and a half, maybe closing in on 18 centimeters. One thing that I definitely can say as far as the Giganotosaurus goes that is a downside to this specific figure is that the legs really do not balance. It bows quite easily. When they showed up, they were both bowed, and I actually did the hot water, cold water trick just once on it to see if I could get the legs back to kind of a standing position. I had done this about probably about 3 hours ago at this point, and it did stand. It did stand actually quite nicely once I repositioned the legs, but of course the legs are now starting to bow back in, and they're not standing anymore. I mean, I might be able to get it to stand if I actually bring it out here. And it's very close, but it doesn't look like it's going to work. But I think the fact that I did get it standing and it's kind of moving back slowly leads me to believe that potentially I could get this to stand if I did the hot water, cold water trick again, which if you don't know what that is, all that means is you want to run some really scalding hot water over the part that is warped, and then after it starts to get a little bit more flexible, you'll pull it out of the hot water. You want to push it into the positioning that you want it in, and then put it under cold water really quickly, which will kind of freeze it in that position. And sometimes it'll work, sometimes it doesn't. You'll probably have to do it a few times for the figure to really stand well, but I can say that both of these did show up with warped legs, and that is most likely going to be a reoccurring trend with this figure. So be prepared if you do purchase this for that to happen. As far as a size comparison with the figures go, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon next to our very, very nicely sized Giganotosaurus figures. And you can see next to Mr. Papo Rex that they are quite large and do almost dwarf him quite a bit because, again, pretty darn sizable figures here as far as these Giganotosaurus go. I really was quite blown away when I got them out of the packaging and saw in person, in hand, just how large they are. They definitely have a very impressive size, and hopefully next to these figures, you'll get a pretty good idea of that. So these really cool Giganotosaurus figures from, I can't pronounce the name of the company, are really, really nice looking for the most part. I will say there are a few downsides to the figure, but it's not anything that's honestly a big deal as far as I'm concerned. But I will say that as far as the actual Sculpt goes, it's a really cool looking Giganotosaurus figure, and definitely not something I was expecting because, again, they just kind of showed up randomly on eBay. I was just scrolling through eBay and happened to notice an image of them and was like, wow, what was that? Went back, entered the link there, and then checked them out and was instantly ordering both versions because I thought they looked super, super cool. And I can say that in person, they are really nice looking Giganotosaurus figures. Definitely very highly detailed overall and quite beautifully sculpted, especially as far as like the fine detailing, like skin texturing, skin wrinkling, all that fun stuff goes. They definitely have a great appearance as far as that, and I love those kind of ridges that run along the back, really giving it a very striking look. The paint application of both is really nice as well. I'm definitely a big fan of both of the paint applications. I'm still having a hard time deciding which one I like the most. I think it's the greenish version just because I really love the way those brown stripes play off of the green, and there is just a wonderful amount of coloration to that figure. It just has a really flashy but really natural looking paint scheme to it. But the other one as well has, again, almost a Papo-like paint scheme to the way it's colored, but also really looks quite nice as far as I'm concerned. I think the tones of color and everything they've used are really nice natural tones as well. And both of these, as far as the paint application goes, is really beautiful overall, except for the tongues. I think the tongues and the eyes actually are two areas that are a little bit of a miss as far as the paint application goes, just because the tongue is a little bit too bright of a coloration. I feel like it would have probably looked better if they used that same purple that they used for the kind of skin flap of the mouth. As far as the coloration of the tongue, I definitely think that would have improved the look of the inside of the mouth. A gloss coat on the tongue is added, but I feel like a gloss coat on the entire inside of the mouth would have also helped the overall realism of the figure as well. The eyes are just a little bit sloppily painted, but I think it's not anything that's all that bad. It's not like the paint's leaking out. I just think that there's too much paint inside the eye area for it to really look picture perfect. But again, the eye paint thing is just a really, really super small minor nitpick. I just think that that tongue is a little bit of an eyesore as far as how bright it is. But the only other real downside to the figure is the fact that the legs are pretty darn warped on both, but I think that's something that could potentially be fixed again with the hot water, cold water trick if you tried it a few times. So as far as I'm concerned, both of these Giganotosaurus figures are absolutely awesome and definite recommendations from me. And again, being solid, pretty darn heavy, and really well made as far as the overall quality goes, I'm very impressed at the fact that they're only like 25, 26 bucks or something like that for each figure, of course, not for both. Individually, they're about that. So it's actually a pretty darn good price for something that's this big and this well made. So if you would like to pick these up, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that on eBay, where I purchased mine, as it's pretty much the only place I can think of right now that has them for sale. So make sure you head to eBay through the link in the description. Go buy yourself some really cool Giganotosaurus figures, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.